Welcome to Group Dates and Hot Takes, a Bachelor Nation podcast. I'm Sampy.
And I'm Christy, and we're back to recap Katie's season of The Bachelorette.
Oh boy, we are back, everyone, for a drama-filled episode 9, The Hometowns.
Yes, you're not kidding about drama. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this on the show before.
Oh, it was a roller coaster of massive proportions that left the internet divided.
Yes, I wonder if we'll be divided.
Oh boy. Well, I have some things to say. But let's get right into it. Into the hometowns, which we had Blake first, right? Or did we have Justin first?
We had Blake first.
So, can I just say how this was essentially exactly the same as last season's? So, was it
Serena?
Was it? Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. Serena P, I think.
It was literally exactly the same. They walk into the room, and there's the Canadian flag hanging on the wall, and there's, like, hockey stuff, and all this.
I mean, they probably reused the same props. I mean, it's still a bubble season.
Though they did bring in a lot of inflatable, like, kids rides, like bouncy house type things this episode.
Yes, there was like this mechanical moose, which I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, I think they had some sort of a promotional thing with some bouncy castle company, because there were.
Yeah, there was one later.
There was a handful of things that that made its way through.
They also drank maple syrup out of wine glasses. I don't know if this is a Canadian thing or not.
Well, I have done this before.
Out of a wine glass?
Not out of a wine glass, but out of a glass.
Oh, interesting.
Look, before people start coming at me, all right, I was born and raised in Vermont. Okay, as much as people think of Canada as being the maple syrup capital, Vermont is actually the legitimate maple syrup capital, okay? And also, we didn't have the humiliating embarrassment of having millions and millions of dollars of maple syrup stolen in a giant maple syrup heist, which is something that Canada cannot say. So, Vermont is the best. Anyways, I've drank maple syrup before.
I must say it is one of the less gross things contestants have had to consume on this show.
Well, that's true. And of course, which I didn't understand it totally, because he had this whole thing about, right, because it was sort of, they're like, we're out of ideas. Blake, at one point in his life, was a bartender for 6 months. Let's just do this in the bar of the resort. Work? Oh, okay, yeah.
Might as well.
Let's just do that. Because it's so funny, because he's like, I never told you this, but I was a bartender. And then he goes behind the bar and literally just pours maple syrup into these wine glasses. He didn't even make some sort of like mixed drink or something, which I feel like there's definitely gotta be some sort of range of alcoholic beverages that include maple syrup in them. But no, it was just straight maple syrup, which, again, fabulous, but still kind of like, what's the point with the whole bartending thing then? Which he also, I don't know if you wanted to bring this up or not, but he was like, I actually like use it for sex as well.
I feel like that was something I didn't need to know that. Like, you could have left that
really?
out.
Yeah, see, I would also keep maple syrup like by my bedside, but it would just be for random drinking.
Even that's a little weird, I have to say.
Well, you don't know. You're not from the north, okay?
That's true.
You don't know what it's like.
Katie also says it's a possibility that she'd move to Canada. Do you believe her?
No. I mean,
I am unconvinced, but I guess if he is the one she picks, I guess we'll see.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she picked him. And I'll talk about this more later, but I feel like, and this probably isn't her intention, or maybe it's not her intention, I don't know, but it seems like she just, at some level, despite her protestations that, right, she's sex positive and she's here to find a husband, at the same time, she kind of plays hard to get. Right? Whereas you'll be in a situation like this, and she'll be like, will you move to Canada? And she'll be like, maybe?
She seems really preoccupied with not showing her cards.
Yeah, which, and again, I have something to talk about with that later, but, yeah, it's kind of strange. So basically, just sort of, I mean, they played darts a little bit, which I think goes to show some of his headspace. But he was saying how he's like was it Friday or Saturday? He's like basically every week he was saying he goes to the bar and plays darts, which is not necessarily something that I would want in a partner.
I think I missed that he went that often.
That seemed to be what he was implying, but I don't know. What do I know? And then, of course, right, they had to play hockey
on the street,
loosely in air quotes. Worst slap shot I've ever seen in my entire life. And as you mentioned, they had the mechanical moose, which was in that sort of bouncy castle type thing. All in all, pretty boring.
Yep, another typical COVID date.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, typical Greg. He gets a glimpse of them, allegedly.
Yeah, I am not.
Catches a glimpse of them.
I'm not convinced he actually saw them because, all the sound bites we heard of him saying that he saw them were all not seeing his face say the words, so they could have easily spliced together.
Oh, 100%. I know the producers were like, this will play well. Greg's sad. Let's just have him see their date, even if it very easily is possible that it did not happen based on the footage we saw, but who knows. So, what about this whole night portion?
Yeah, time to meet the family. She meets Blake's mom, his sister, and I think there was one other person, but I don't remember who that was.
Yeah, because a couple of his sisters couldn't make it.
Yeah. The mom wonders if this is just infatuation, which, yes, it is, but we're not going to say that. Oh, I actually liked his mom a lot. She was really realistic. She was like, hey, there's other guys here. Where are you at with them? And Katie has to kind of fumble around, and it's like, well, we haven't said we love each other yet. Mom wonders if Blake arriving late is to blame for that. Mm-hmm. Which I don't think it is.
I'd say no.
But
nope. Yeah, and then of course sappy. Just a lot of sappy stuff. A lot of things that made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, his sister kind of roasted him a bit, saying like, "Oh, you said you were in love with Claire and then Tasha. Now you're in love with Katie. How can you be sure?"
He is in love with anybody he can have sex with, potentially.
He says, "I feel it way more today than last week," which I thought was an odd quote.
I mean, that's just all you want.
Yes, and also earlier, I forgot to mention this, he also said, "I need to be as vulnerable as I can with the feeling of love."
Which totally sounded like a situation that you're in when you're trying to write a school assignment and you're trying to hit 1,000 words or 5 or whatever, and you're just like, therefore, because of the reason that I did or did not do this, that just kind of it's reminded me of that, because it's just like, are you really actually, are you for real right now? Like, you're just what you're saying makes no sense. Yeah, and I mean, I guess he could see himself marrying her, or I guess at the very least proposing to her. And then, generic, "Oh, let's play street hockey with the family outside, bonding, yay, blah."
Yep. And then when it's time to say goodbye at the SUV, Blake says, "I feel so good about you." So he does not say.
No, he didn't. They wanted him to be brave and tell her how he allegedly feels, but he couldn't do it.
No, he's not there yet.
No, he's not there yet. Anything else we missed? I feel like it was pretty
I
just
think that's it.
So then, poor Justin.
Justin.
Can I just say, Justin is a classic case of just like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, he has no shot. He's only here by default because Michael left. Like,
he's literally like, he's only survived this long because he didn't create a lot of drama.
Yeah, and on top of all that, his parents can't even come, which,
well, can't come or won't come.
I don't know. If his parents didn't give a reason, he was on the phone with them saying, "Oh, I wish you guys could be here," but honestly,
it just didn't seem like they were happy with the idea
No.
of him being on the show.
Sound like they didn't want to be on TV, which I don't really blame them for that. But also, since he has no shot, it wasn't worth his parents coming to start with.
Ouch. That hurts a little bit, Christy.
Hey, I'm just telling it like I see it.
Oh, man. Yeah, so instead, he's gonna have a couple friends come. But again, like, before you even get there, there's just like we're on COVID, so we can't go to your hometown, so we're just gonna bring in a couple things that vaguely remind you of your town.
Yeah, so he's from Baltimore, which I was like, oh, what are they gonna do to represent Baltimore? And I was...
Were you satisfied?
Not really, but what can you really do when you're in the middle of a desert? Because Baltimore is on the harbor. So there was not an ounce of water anywhere here. They brought in like this Baltimore sign.
Yeah, they made a welcome to Baltimore sign hastily, I'm sure.
And there was also a horse-drawn carriage, which I didn't see what that had to do with Baltimore at all.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that was like, I would have associated that with New York City or something like that before I ever associated it with Baltimore.
Yes, they did get one thing right with the crabs, at least.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, I don't know if I would have wanted to eat any food.
Nope.
There. Just given the whole production schedule.
Not a chance. Even Katie didn't look super thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, she just to say something since she tried to eat that clam. Remember?
Oh,
Ugh. Yeah, and then he has to break the news. Sad,
yeah.
terrible, sad news. But he has a couple friends, and they know everything about him. They're ride or die. He's known them forever.
Yep. I don't remember his friends' names. I just have them written down
Nope.
as friend. Oh.
The funny thing from this date for me was the friend of his with the beard was talking to him, there's one-on-one conversation, and have you guys said that you love each other? And he's like, no, we haven't, but there's still there's time. And the friend is like, there are 2 weeks left, which is actually more time than what they actually have, right?
Yeah, it's not 2 more weeks of filming at this point.
I just laughed so hard at that because literally, dude,
This is your last shot.
You got nothing going. Literally, the only way, and you still might not even come out ahead if this happens. But the only way things are gonna go well for you is if Blake also gets irritated and leaves as well.
He's just left by default. Oh, that'd be so funny.
And he's just the only one left.
How sad. Katie also says it has been a slow progression with them, which that's not what you want to hear from the lead. That means you're behind everybody else.
Yeah. But they can get there, Christy.
I mean, Justin did say at the end that he says he's falling in love, but it really seemed like he had to eke it out. Like it was a struggle.
Yeah, a lot of just... Yeah, in my opinion, didn't go particularly well.
No, but somebody else had it worse.
Oh, boy. Yeah, because we're headed to Jersey, guys. That was a terrible approximation of anything remotely Jersey. Again, why with the eating things?
Yeah, Greg.
Just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's all they can really do is to go for the food aspect of these places. Yeah, they eat pork sandwiches, Italian ice.
Well, you can't forget to mention that they were riding around on a tandem bicycle.
Yep.
Which, is that really a New Jersey thing?
I don't know.
Doubt it. They just had one in the shed. They're like, you know what reminds me of Jersey? Tandem bicycles. I'm sure we'll get some comment about this. Tandem bicycles were actually invented in New Jersey?
Yeah.
No, our listeners don't care that much about facts. But, yeah, we'll get to these thoughts later, but, yeah, finally brings her to a tennis court to play basketball. Because they don't have a basketball court at the resort.
That did look funny.
But Greg used to play basketball with his dad, and so he wanted to play basketball with Katie because on their first date, she took him on a date fishing, which was something that she did a lot with her dad, who also passed away. So it's we're both half orphans. We have this in common. That sort of thing. Talk to me about the rain.
I guess he wanted to reprise their one-on-one date, so he snaps his fingers, and all of a sudden it starts raining in heavy air quotes.
apparently he thought the whole I guess maybe you could consider it to be like the Notebook type scene, right?
Yeah.
Like the rom-com. I don't know if like Sleepless in Seattle had a kissing in the rain scene or not, but yeah. Starts pouring again as they make out.
It wasn't quite as impressive as the first time, I have to say.
Well, I think that was influenced by the time of day as well, because there was so much light, whereas it was nighttime the previous time, and so it was very visible.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Wow, it rains in Jersey." It's like basically rains everywhere, and he's like, and he was like, "Sometimes."
Man.
Unbelievable.
So time to meet the family.
Oh boy.
So we have his mom, his brother, and a friend of his. His sisters couldn't be there, but they sent a video talking about how much they miss him. And
Which is a little weird. Nobody should like their siblings so much. Yeah, I mean a lot of confidence, a lot of just surety of the future.
Katie tells his mom that Greg will be here next week, which that right there is unheard of. The leads never say stuff like that.
Well, she even said, I think, that she wasn't supposed to say it.
Yeah. That's how strong these two were.
Which is kind of funny, given how, like, okay, you're not supposed to say it, but the viewers are going to see that in, like, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, a lot of just, man, a lot of, like, vulnerability, a lot of love.
Yep, everything seems to be going great.
But then, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, this fateful conversation. Like, Greg starts talking about how he hasn't been this vulnerable with anyone, that Katie has filled the hole in his heart that his dad left. Says, "I'm in love with you." And Katie's response changes the course of this entire episode.
Or perhaps lack of response as well.
She says,
Though,
I just love looking at you.
Which, okay. In case any of our listeners have zero social awareness whatsoever, that is not equal to saying that you like someone.
No.
There is no equivalency here whatsoever. It is not a good idea to respond to "I love you" with "I love looking at your face."
Yeah, this did not go over well with Greg.
No, he did not like that.
Yeah, and Katie notices that he's kind of looking dejected, and then Greg starts saying, "Why do you think this is hard for me?" He really starts probing her, says he doesn't understand how she doesn't know at this point. And then they kind of start going back and forth. Katie says it's hard to meet other people's families, which that was interesting, because is she talking about Justin here?
We may never know.
Yeah, and he also says, "Why can't you share with me, especially when you see that I need it?" Very presumptuous statement. So, like, at this point, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, Greg wants more than just, "Oh, I love looking at you." So I feel like Katie should have, like obviously not responded that way, but maybe said something like, I don't know, the typical bachelor speak of like, I'm falling for you, or I could really see us together at the end. Something like that.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if this is the right place to talk about this or not, but I'll go ahead and because this is something that I did want to touch on, is that, and you've mentioned this before, right? About how, right, this is, in a lot of ways, like when you're on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, like it's a reality TV show. So on a lot of levels, you're essentially playing a game,
Yeah.
right? Where the objective and sort of the prize, if you will, is that, well, Instagram followers. But if you get the grand prize, it's getting engaged with $100,000 ring and maybe getting married and all that stuff. And so it is a game, and I don't think that Katie has played it well. Particularly on stuff like this. And I don't know how you would necessarily go about this better, but I don't think she's really ever expressed to people, and please correct me if I'm misremembering or not remembering something, but it seems like she has expressed her intentions to everyone but the actual guys. In terms of, so for example, the big one, her whole thing about only telling the final guy that she loves him.
Yeah. I don't think she said that to anyone else.
No, she's told all their parents now. She's said it in ITMs, but I don't think she's ever said that to them. And so do I disagree with that? No, like, not really. Like, I mean, it's kind of weird to just be telling everybody you love them all the time. But, right, this is a game, and you do have to keep people invested and involved. And I don't think that she's been doing that well, and I don't know if they're, like, I suspect that this was potentially a component of why Michael A. left. Like, obviously the big reason was that he needed to take care of his son, but at the same time, I think that this probably played into it, because as you've had various people comment on this throughout about, and this happened just after these moments, in this episode as well, where it's like the guys are like, I don't know what the heck she's thinking.
Yeah, they said she was tough to read.
Because she doesn't actually give them anything, which again, it's kind of weird to be analyzing things in these terms, because it's like, well, she doesn't owe them anything. Who do they think they are? But at the same time, if you are trying to play this game well, I think it is a component. Even if you don't go as far as being like, oh, I love you, at least say whatever's necessary to kind of express what you're feeling up to that point, so that you keep people invested, right? Because I don't, and I'm sure you'll talk about later, like, what the internet is feeling about all this stuff, because it's fairly divisive. But well, Greg is pretty whiny and angsty, and I think that if he was legitimately as invested as he said he was, I feel like you got to be more direct, right? He was he was complaining a lot, but he was doing a lot of skirting around things, and particularly, right, why can't you share with me, especially when you see that I need it? It's like, just tell her specifically what you, if she's like
Yeah.
not realizing, or if she's like really holding back, tell her what you need, and then she either responds or she doesn't. Right? Because I think that she tries to express that in like a way that she feels comfortable with. I mean, I think you saw that with when she was telling his family, right, that he was going to be there the next week. Right? And trying to express that sort of within her kind of code, I guess. So it was tough, but I think you had a lot of disconnect there between her and a lot of the guys, particularly as you got further and further on, because I think that they were expecting an additional level of like verbal commitment or something from her to like reassure them.
Yeah, they don't know where they stand with her, which is hard.
Exactly, right? And so, people can and we've we've gotten on our soapbox plenty of times about how, oh, well, like, what you've signed up for. Like, it's not a mystery. Like, as a contestant, you're going to be going and you're going to be simul-dating with dozens of other people, right? But at the same time, I think that there is sort of that balance of trying to play the game properly so that you actually do get the outcome that you want. And so I think that on a lot of levels, she's played the game poorly and is therefore not getting the outcomes that she wanted.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of like assigning blame, if you even can, in a situation like this, I feel like she gets, I don't know, maybe like 35% of the blame here because of the way she initially responded. But
yeah, I just think she was kind of dense.
Yeah, it was just miscommunication and just trying to keep up like the facade of being the Bachelorette, not revealing too much, but also leaving him hanging.
Well, guys, you heard it here first. Katie gets 30 to 35% of the blame for this situation.
Yeah, but the problem is we move on to the next day. This is a doozy. So
I cringed so hard when this was about to happen because I knew where it was going.
Anytime you see a contestant going to find the lead, man, you just know. And he even says, I don't know how this convo is going to go. I'm like, surely you know this is going to end badly. So he goes to her room and sits down on Katie's breakup couch, which is he's the third guy to get broken up or have something end on that couch this season.
That's right, because it was Andrew, then Michael A, and then him.
Oh,
right?
and also Brendan. So actually, that's
Brendan,
the fourth.
Yeah. Though technically, I guess the Andrew wasn't technically breakup.
Yes, they were already
but it was also
broken up.
Kind of like 3.5. Yeah.
Yep.
I just.
He told his family that she was the one. So he just starts with this whole spiel. And he said, when I said that to you, I felt like I was saying that to a stranger. You dismissed it, didn't feel it. I mean, this was just a bad tone to start the whole thing off with.
Perhaps.
And then Katie finally tells him, I haven't told anyone here that I love you. I'm saving that for the end.
Which, again, goes back to kind of her not really playing the game well. Like, that's not something, and who knows if this would have helped anything if, like, sort of near the beginning, or at least when the field was getting pared down a bit, if she had been like, hey, guys, look, this is how I feel like I need to be on my journey, which is reserve. Like, I don't want to hurt people more than necessary, so I'm going to reserve telling, like, saying I love you to whoever whoever the final guy is the person. Like, I'm not going to say I love you before that. I don't know if that would have worked, but I feel like that plays better at least than telling him after all this stuff has gone down. Oh yeah, but I'm just saving telling people that I love them until it's the final guy. Like, I feel like that's not really an effective firefighting tool. Is going like retroactively saying, but really the whole time I wasn't doing this for anybody, because what does he know?
Yeah, the damage has already been done at that point.
Yes, just slightly. Yeah, just a lot of you did this, you did that, you hurt me. It was surface level.
And Katie just keeps trying to apologize. Sorry, I didn't say more. And Greg's like, you weren't listening. I mean, he was so like rude to her, I thought.
Oh,
just
dang.
the things he was saying.
Gloves are coming off.
You weren't listening. How can you ask me what's wrong?
Which I don't necessarily disagree that she wasn't listening. But still, and I think honestly, this all comes down to a miscommunication about what the rose means. Because I think in her mind, the rose means, oh, like, I am falling in love with you, or like, I love you, or whatever. But in his mind, it's just like, oh, I just survive another week, because he doesn't see, I guess, enough evidence in his mind. But I wanted to bring up another thing here, which was, and it wasn't quite so much here. It was more a little bit later on when they were like in the shadows trying to avoid the video people or whatever. But because Greg is the actor guy, right?
Yes.
Well, it was just kind of funny to me because there's this set of acting exercises that's part of a wider sort of technique, and I don't know what training he's actually had, but basically it's based on repeating things. And I was noticing that, and whether this was intentional or not, kind of a lot of what Greg was doing was sort of like step 1 to 2 of this sort of school of thought, where basically you're just repeating back what the person says to you. And it's the point of it is to sort of build your awareness of the other person, but it's supposed to then continue on kind of further than that into actual like response and reciprocation between the two people. But he would do that a lot, where she would say something, and then he would just like return it back exactly the same of what she said. And I'm trying to think of a specific example. But it was sort of along the lines of like, oh, I'm sorry that hurt you. You're sorry that hurt me. like that sort of thing. Which is very, again, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it was very like this acting exercise, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I don't know. Hopefully this isn't intentional, but
I hope not.
If it is intentional, it's incredibly rude. If it's not intentional, it's kind of immature.
Yeah, there's also like this disconnect with them of what he wants from her, because he keeps saying that like she's not authentic. So never asked you to confess your love. I just wanted Katie. But like, what does that mean? Like, I felt for her in this, because like she keeps trying to give him what he wants, but he's never satisfied with anything she says.
I think that he's just really insecure.
Yeah, that too.
And so he has a very specific idea in his mind of how he thinks things should go, and how he like wants things to go, and he can't really cope very well when they don't.
Yeah, and
at least that's kind of what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, and at some point they leave the hotel room and continue this argument outside. Um, he also says, "You didn't understand what I needed." Katie says she feels helpless, confused how one night could change everything. And that's the part that, like, kind of really stuck out to me. It's like, if you say that you're really in love with this person and then, like, one wrong response means the end of everything, like, it must not have been that deep to start with.
Oh no! See, every relationship on The Bachelor and Bachelorette are so deep, so lasting.
I know.
I guess, like I think it just keeps going back to the fact that they just were not communicating, and so she was, I think that she was being genuine, but you can only do so much if you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Right, because if all you know is kind of that, oh, you didn't respond in the right way in this moment, right? Because at some point she's kind of realizing that it was that one moment from the night before. If you don't, like, there's sort of, right, there are, like, could be a million different ways to do something wrong and only one or two to do something right. So it's like, well, really, what are you going to do in that situation?
Yeah, they just keep going back and
yeah,
forth.
just going around in circles.
And he's
going around in circles because he won't communicate.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I also brought up the whole acting thing, is because it's really, like, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't communicate. I don't know if people realize this or not, but generally speaking, people are not mind readers. And so if there's something that's important to you, perhaps you should just say it in a clear way so that the other person can respond to that. Or not respond to that, right? That's just, it has to do with humanity and where people are at a given time. But there's a lot more chance of reacting positively, or, as he would say, getting what he needs or whatever, if what he needs is actually put out there.
Well, I mean, he tried, I guess. He kept saying, "I just wanted something real," and, like, implying that Katie is not being real with him. He's like, who cares about the rose? So
yeah, but I don't think you can really expect her to be in that moment of high stress and just running around in circles. And I don't think you can expect her to just be like, oh yeah, like, here's the emotional support you need. I don't think that that's realistic.
no, and at this point, everything was just too far gone. Like, they're just, like, going back and forth. Like, there wasn't going to be a resolution. He even said at one point, "Something makes me sick. I'm so confused."
Yeah, that was something he said so many times. Even later in the evening after she had left, he's just, like, pacing around. I'm so confused. I'm so confused.
Yeah. Oh, this is the point where they go outside, and at this point, Katie's just sobbing, like, didn't see this happening. If you left, I was done, which is interesting, considering who else is left. Giving you everything. You don't believe me, I'm losing my mind. And then Greg's response to this is, "I deserve more than what I've been giving from your side, or getting from your side. I'm not happy here anymore. I'm done here."
Which is contrasted to the night before, where he's like, "I'm finally happy."
Yeah, he just comes off really immature here.
Mm-hmm. mean, just a little bit.
And he walks away, and that's the last we see of him.
End scene.
Yes.
Oh, man.
So Katie goes back to her room and is crying in the bathroom, and eventually Caitlin comes in.
Which you should not have sent Caitlin for this task.
I don't know. I thought she did fine. Like, can you imagine if Chris Harrison was still hosting? How terrible this would have been. At least Caitlin can be like a friend.
Buck up there, kiddo.
So yeah, they talk for a bit. And this is where we get the quote, "I want someone to book my flight home," that we've been seeing in the previews all season.
As you know, so just a very classic sort of I want to say like teen drama type thing where like one person is locked in a room crying and one person is sitting outside the door talking to them through the door trying to console them.
Yeah. She eventually lets her in.
But it's all over.
You know, until they show the previews where clearly she is
which
still
is
there.
Again, yeah, though there for how long?
I don't know, long enough for her family to be around.
Yeah, but I mean, they were probably like, look, you signed a contract, so you legally at least have to be here for another like 7 days, but we'll bring your family in, and then like if you aren't still okay after that point, then you can go home.
Yeah, it'll
Because at least it won't have been quite as much of a disaster as Claire's season.
Hey, that supposedly ended in success.
According to whom?
According to the 2 engaged bachelorettes from that season.
Is Claire actually? I thought they broke up.
Yeah, but then they like got back together, I think. She's still wearing the ring.
Unbelievable. I don't even. I can't even. All right, it's just unbelievable.
So, like, from this point, it should be very interesting to see what happens because, like, what happens to, like, fantasy suites? There's only 2 people left.
Yeah, and also, right, so this is episode 9 that we're recording right now. Typically, there would be another 3 episodes, right?
It's usually, like, 11, so we're, like, missing 1 episode.
Didn't we have 12 episodes with Matt's season?
Maybe? I don't
did.
remember.
We had 12 episodes with Matt's season. Huh, interesting. Yeah, so we're getting shortchanged here, people.
Yeah, and also, how does she pick someone after this tumultuous ending? How do you, like, accept a proposal from somebody after this just happened?
Look, I don't claim to know what goes in the minds of bachelors and bachelorettes. All right, it's a far too stable or like unstable ecosystem for me to think about that deeply.
Yeah, well,
I did. I got quite the kick out of the end tag, which essentially played exactly like some sort of like awards show, like in memoriam segment.
Yeah, he didn't die.
He just like had all this footage of Katie and Greg and like them smiling, you know, kissing in the rain, looking at fireworks. This is all like
yeah, it was a little
dramatic
music,
music. Like,
top.
Oh man, yep. I forgot he died.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. So we could just leave things here, but I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a little bit because there's some stuff that's on my heart right now, Christy. which I wanted to talk about here today, which was that, and I hate that I keep saying this, I really do, but going onto The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, or even Bachelor in Paradise, is not an adequate substitution for therapy. Okay?
Agreed.
And so I get frustrated because I find as I watch this, I'm just like, why did you come on this show? You should never have been on this show. You should just be off getting yourself right. Because I say that in light of all of the Greg stuff. Because he sort of seemed to be operating from a sort of perspective, and this is my own opinion. This is my speculation, just based on the footage we've seen and everything. But it seemed like Greg was kind of operating from the perspective of treating a partner or a potential partner as a source of therapy. And I've seen that sort of with people in my own life over the years, and it seems like it's a fairly common thing, or at least not an uncommon occurrence, to sort of be like, oh, I have this person who kind of has to be around me. Let me just unburden myself upon them, which isn't particularly healthy because most of us are not equipped to handle that sort of thing whatsoever. And so, while there are obviously barriers sometimes to getting therapy, it's not really something that you should be putting on the shoulders of your partner. Which is not to say that, like, the people in your life, and particularly the person you're in a relationship with, that they won't be a big boost to your mental health and be just helpful and supportive in that way. But I think that there is a distinction, and I'll bring up Michael here as a bit of a counterpoint, because I feel like, at least based on what we saw, that was a much healthier way of handling things. Because as we all know, he comes on the show, and I mean, it wasn't that long ago that his wife died. I mean, what, 2019? Sometime in 2019? I think he was saying the beginning of 2019.
Yeah,
though.
it was like 2 years. So about the same amount of time as Greg's dad passed away, I think. That was about 2 years as well, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit longer for Michael, perhaps, but essentially, right? You still, like, this is a very big trauma in his life, obviously, and he comes on the show, and he did let Katie kind of be part of his life. He told her those things. She did have an opportunity to be supportive, as he said. At some point, the whole process, and I don't really understand how this could happen, but good for him that going through this process showed him, that he could actually find somebody to love again, which is kind of a big deal after losing a long-term spouse, right? But he didn't come in and expect her to kind of deal with things, like, for him, right? He didn't go in and kind of be like, these are my issues, I need you to, like, fill the holes that I have, in my in my, like, personality and the stuff that I've been grieving. Some of that did happen, I think, as they became pretty close and all of this different stuff, but that wasn't something that he expected from her. And so hopefully this is making sense, but it sort of felt like Greg was kind of going in with a little bit of the expectation that like she would fix him.
Yeah, because he talked about this was like the first time he had felt happy in like a couple of years, and that was due to her. So I guess when she didn't respond exactly how he wanted, it was like everything came crashing down, which like it wasn't her job to fill that.
Right, which again, it's not to say that people in our lives can't have that effect on us, but it's not sort of external people's responsibility in our lives to fill that role for us, particularly from the perspective of like making us sort of process through the difficulties that we have to process through, right? It's a wonderful thing that he actually seemed to have felt happy again for the first time since his father died. Like, that's wonderful. But again, if you're trying to, or if you're feeling that like this is only happening because of this other person, or that this is something that you really need from them, it ends up being pretty unhealthy, I think. And so I think that's sort of where you saw the two of them kind of diverge in their behavior. You know, well, Michael did end up leaving the show. You know, I think that he left in a much better place just overall, but I think part of that was that he didn't have these expectations. Like, he was sort of his own person with his own life and his own things that he had worked through and was working through, and he wanted her to be around for that and part of that, but he wasn't wanting her to drive that.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like the show was just kind of like fun for him. Like, this is a chance to get away. Maybe something good will happen, but at the end of the day, he's still fine. Like, if Katie didn't pick him.
Yeah, right. Where it's, you know, it seemed like, again, what do I know? Just about nothing. But it did seem like it was the opposite for Greg, where he came in and he was like deeply wounded coming in because, right? I mean, understandably so. He had all this trauma in his life, and then he becomes a little bit vulnerable, but sort of from a weird place, and then takes it very personally when she's not able to be the therapist she needs him to be, or he needs her to be, rather.
Yeah, probably is a big source of the disconnect there.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was just sad to see. I just sort of felt like I was watching another sort of scenario, like the Matt and his father scene, where it's just like this person should not be on television, and not because I don't like them or don't like watching them, but they have bigger issues that they need to work through in some other, private place.
I feel like a lot of producers seek out people with tragic backstories to come on the show because it makes for like good TV supposedly. So therefore, you're going to end up with a lot of unresolved trauma on these shows.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I just hate that.
Yeah, it's really unhealthy, but
and like so many people have trauma, of course, but there is a difference between having experienced trauma and having dealt with it, or sort of are dealing with it, versus having had trauma and just kind of ignored it, which seemed kind of like what Greg's situation, and potentially Matt, though obviously with Matt there, with the other person involved in that dynamic, there's kind of an extra layer of complexity there in terms of resolving that stuff. But yeah, it's not particularly healthy, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, a bit of a downer to end the season on.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how they try to salvage things.
Yeah, with one episode left.
Yeah.
What a weird ending to this season. Just everything was all mixed up with the timing of when everything aired and the number of people at the end. It was just all weird.
Yeah, and what I would guess is that they like talk her down from the wall, from the ledge, and get her to go through with things, and then she just is like, fine, I'll pick somebody and have them propose to me. I don't even know you, Justin. Blake, just do it.
Yeah.
I don't give a crap anymore.
Yeah, she's only got 2 options left, and one of them isn't even really an option. So that leaves Blake.
I mean, he might be a better person than Blake, possibly, but...
Well, Katie clearly seems more drawn to Blake.
I don't particularly... this is... Okay, mean alert. I just don't particularly like Blake's face. He's just kind of a strange-looking dude. His skull is a strange shape.
He has like a wide jaw. Maybe that's what you're noticing.
I don't know how he fits through doorways with the jaw that wide. But yeah, well, what you gonna do? I guess, unless there's anything else you wish to discuss, I can give the number of kisses.
Let's hear it.
The final total for this episode is 26.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be.
She got off to a pretty strong start. I mean, I feel like she could have been up to like 35 if things hadn't been derailed so significantly.
Yeah, she missed out on some with Greg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very pitiful season compared to last season.
Yeah.
But what you gonna do?
That's what happens when you have so many people eliminate themselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, what a roller coaster. Do you care to give people our contact information?
Our Instagram is groupdatespodcast, and our email is groupdatespod@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Christy. And as you all know, just reach out if we're terrible. Or really for any reason. We really enjoy hearing from people, their hot takes. I know that we are the go-to place for Bachelor Nation hot takes. And so we always enjoy hearing whatever hot takes our listeners have as well.
Yes. We love hearing what people think.
Oh, yeah. Christy's all about the drama.
Yes.
It's what keeps her alive. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. Join us next week to see if they can salvage this explosively train wrecky season's end here that we seem to be approaching.
I don't have high hopes, but...
Oh, boy.
We'll see.
If Christy doesn't have high hopes, it's all over. This has been Group Dates and Hot Takes, a Bachelor Nation podcast. I'm Zampy.
And I'm Christy. We'll talk to you next week.